Oh, hello. Well, welcome to my storage unit. What can I do for you? Oh, you want me to tell you a story? Would you like another story about the teepee? Oh, I have so many stories to tell you, and you know, being in a storage unit, it's a great place to tell stories. So I'm glad you're here. So come on in and sit down, and I have a story to tell you. I do. I was just thinking about it earlier, and it has to do with the color blue and a frog. I think that this would be a great story to tell you. So, when we lived at the teepee, are you listening? Okay, good. I don't think there's a huge point to this story, but it is a cute story. So when we lived at the teepee, we had to deal with all kinds of bugs. So we had to deal with animals for sure. Like we had issues with different sizes of animals, raccoons and squirrels and mice, and we didn't have problems with really big animals, but we did have problems with mice, but we also had to live with the bugs, the insects. And that's one thing when you live outside that you have to deal with. And we used to have, they kind of came in waves. So you'd go through a time where you'd had to deal with, things like black flies. And black flies would kind of get up underneath, right at the base of your hairline, and they would bite you. We had horse flies, we had mosquitoes. And funny with the mosquitoes, you would be talking to someone and everybody would be going, as they're talking, everybody's like smacking the mosquitoes away while you're trying to talk on the mountain. Spiders, which were my least favorite of them all. You could have those brown spiders, recluse, that could make a funnel cone web thing like in a matter of minutes. Like one time I remember we were at the table and we were playing the Moedim game, actually, a game that we made for the feast, and I had turned around to a little, like my dresser behind me, and I had put my hand into just it was just like this, like I just put my hand into something like that, and I had to get something, came back, started play. 10 minutes later I go back to put my hand in, and there's a yucky spider funnel already created in there by one of those recluse stupid spiders, and I was like, ah! And at first when we were at the teepee, I'd see a spider, the girls and I would see a spider, and we'd be like, ah, Isaac, come help us. But by the end, all three of us girls were like, spider, bam! We just get rid of the spiders. Well, I got a white carpet for the teepee, and that seems really stupid when you're living in the mountains and you have, you're always dirty. Why you have a white carpet? So I had people ask me this, and I would say because I can see the spiders so much faster with a white carpet. So as soon as I saw spider, dead. I have no patience for that. I kill them. Don't like spiders. Well, another thing that we had to deal with was ants. Ants were quite a big deal, and for some reason, those ants felt like they needed inside our teepee. There is miles and miles of wonderful forest out there for them to go find other things, other sawdust, other trees, other wood to gnaw on. But no, they had to come into our teepee. And so one of the things is they wanted the sawdust in our little compost toilet. So we had a compost toilet. It was basically a bucket, and we would put sawdust in. You would do your thing, you put sawdust over it, and it was above ground. So a really cool system, but the ants wanted it. So the ants would come, make this little trail. So they'd come marching, and they would go march all the way up the post, or the outside the canvas that goes on top, the canvas cover that goes on top of the teepee. They would climb all the way up. They'd get to a post that was sticking out, and then they would climb all the way down that post, down into our bathroom, get their thing, and then they come back all the way up. They would travel all the way and then back down the outside of the canvas. it made going to the bathroom at night a little scary because you'd open the toilet and there'd be hundreds of ants there. So we tried real hard to seal that all the time. But one thing that Maggie and Hadassah did, they would lay in bed at night, and you get so used to like living with creatures from the woods that Maggie would just lay there and at night, and she would just watch the ants go all the way up, and they would come down, and all the way up, and they would come down. So she was counting ants instead of sheep, right? Another thing I remember dealing with was we came home late one night after town day, and we came up the trail, and it was dark, and the big galvanized bucket that had the dog food in it was tipped over. So we knew that something big had tipped that thing over and eaten some of the dog food. And so we were like, a little bit nervous about that. Go to bed about 1 o'clock in the morning. Isaac hears this boom, boom, boom. He hears this. Oh, there you go. That's a good sound. He hears this. We went, oh, wow, that sounds like a big animal. So he flew out of bed, threw his coat on, and I think he just still had his shorts on from bed. And he just threw his coat on and grabbed his gun. So first he moves the rocking chair to the front door, which is the canvas, door, and he sits there with his headlamp, and he just sits there, and he just watches the door for probably 40 minutes. He's just sitting there because the animal that made that sound was trying to get back into the dog food, and we didn't know how big it was. Comes to find out, probably was just a raccoon, but nevertheless, we were greenies up there. We didn't know what was going on. We didn't know the woods really well, and so one of the things that that was a precious moment I'll never forget, seeing Isaac, boom, sitting right there. Well, my story today, and getting to my story, of course, I go down many tangents because I have so many stories to tell because I've lived so much. It's about a frog. Okay, so the frogs would get between the liner and the teepee cover, and it was super fun when the sun would shine on the cover. You could see the outline of a frog climbing up the canvas, the canvas on the inside of the liner. So we had resident frogs that lived with us, and one of them, we opened up the drawer one day in the silverware drawer. So we had like a little bedroom area, we had a kitchen area, we had a bathroom area, and we had a living room area, and the girls had a loft upstairs. Well, in the kitchen area, we had a little cabinet and had drawers, and which probably in the end wasn't too smart, but we had drawers. A lot of things were in containers and just really sealed down, but we had drawers where our silverware was, and there was a frog in the drawer, little frog, like this big. And so we took him out and put him outside. And then the next day we come back, and that little frog is back in the drawer. So we take him out and put him back outside. Like, why do you want to be in the drawer? There's no water in the drawer. It's not fun in the drawer. There's no sunshine in the drawer. Your friends aren't in the drawer. Why do you want in the drawer? Next day we come back, guess what? The frog is in the drawer. Take the frog out, put him outside. Okay, so this went on for a little while. Finally, Isaac goes, and he's like, I'm going to paint his bum. So he paints a blue spot on the frog's bottom, and then he puts him outside. And he wants to see if it's the same frog that keeps coming back. Ends up that you can't paint a frog, I don't think. Because the next day, the frog is back in the drawer, but there's no paint. So either the frog is too slimy to paint, and paint won't stick on a frog, or that was another frog. So we still don't know the answer to this question. But one thing we do know is that the frog liked to be in our drawer. So in the end, we just let him. You just learn to live with it. I don't know what the point is of my story there. It's just a fun story. So thank you for coming. I like to end all my stories with, and he lived happily ever after. So I hope that little frog likes his new owners and likes to live there still. Who knows if he's still there? I don't know. But thank you for coming by. Thank you for listening to my story and being such good listeners. So definitely come again, okay? I have lots of stories to tell. Okay, bye-bye.